in the US, so so that's what we do, but we do a lot of research work. And so I spoke with Frida yesterday, and I said I need to really share a lot of jobs that we have on our careers page, which is prosperitynow.com/careers. And out of all of the jobs, like one of the biggest ones that I'm looking for is for a assistant director of applied research. I'm not going to go through like what the job entails, but I would say like someone who is really good in research, data analysis, data collection, quantitative, qualitative collection data, being able to use SPSS, because a lot of the data that is used, we use and take it to the Hill to advocate and to basically give the Senate and Congress like really concrete information about numbers that are affecting the various areas that we work in. So what I'm going to do is I will drop in the chat our careers page, and I will also give you my direct email, because if you or someone wants to apply for the job, just reach out to me directly, because I am the hiring manager. So we can definitely talk more about it, even do an informational interview. So I'm all for it, but I'm all about, using our networks to really try and fill these positions. And that's it. But again, if you want to call me or email me, I will drop all that in the chat.
Thank you so much, Chanda. So this is what it's all about, connecting each other, but giving an opportunity for others to stand on the shoulders of those that have gone ahead. So Chanda, thank you so much for that. And now I'm going to transition over to our moderator for the day, beautiful Ms. Chitabula Kabula. Go ahead, Chita, you're on.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Chita Kabulo, based in Atlanta. I'm an advisory manager at Deloitte, and during the day I serve financial services clients. Really excited about this session because I'm passionate about empowering young people, and the work that ZISD is doing is really remarkable. So without spending a lot of time, I want to show a quick video that will introduce you guys to ZISD if you're not already aware. And then just a little bit about format. I'll show the video, and then Dr. Chiluwata, a very own rocket scientist, will speak and just introduce himself. And he's the founder of ZISD and share his journey to establishing ZISD. And then Mutemwa, who is a graduate of the program, will speak and share a little bit about what he's doing and how he's benefited. And then I'll ask some prepared questions, but as always, the chat function is open. So feel free to share your reactions and ask your questions as they are sharing. After I ask a few questions, I'll open up the floor for you all to ask questions. Again, I'm happy to ask questions if you're in a noisy area or if you can't come on video. But if you can, I do encourage you to come on and ask your questions directly. All right, so without further ado, here's a little video about them. Let me know. Is the sound okay, Dr. Frida? No sound. All right. Sorry about that. All right.
Their country takes the lead when it comes to technology. All right, now for some pretty amazing kids in Zambia on a mission to make sure their country takes the lead when it comes to technology. They make robots and they're determined to have it go global. The Kwesa Burak went to meet them in Lusaka.
Who knows, we might just build the next big thing.
Science and technology dares you to dream.
It's the future of this world, and I want to be in this future.
I want to be the next person to build the next Sophia robot.
It changes the world, and it changes me.
Meet the Zambian national team that you may not have heard of. 11 students aged 12 to 21 who, in addition to regular school, are dedicating hours every week to a shared passion, robotics.
The robotics experience is one that has touched me personally because I feel It gives me a platform in which I can express myself with people that are like-minded.
My team is like a rainbow, very colorful, very bright. Well, the team members were not at the same level. Some were obviously computer geeks. Some were communication people, very talkative, but they were speaking one language, which was they wanted STEM to and robotics to succeed.
Republic of Zambia.
And it's a team with big aims. They recently fulfilled their ambition to represent Zambia at the first Challenge Robotics Championships. The annual competition sees young robotics developers from all over the world pitting their skills against each other.
Well, they literally had 7 weeks to put it up together. That's building the robot, but also building the Facebook movement and stuff. So it was really, really tough.
And it's not just about competitions. This team believed that robots could be key to improving Zambia's future.
They can be used obviously for agriculture because Zambia is very big on agriculture. It's basically a platform. People might think we're playing with robots, but we're basically playing with the minds and building them for that frontier. Technology is part of the global agenda, so it's very important that Zambia gets involved. I mean, we cannot be left behind. I mean, Africa is obviously a very big market and Zambia is a fast-growing economy. And for these guys, they're the next leaders of Zambia, so we need to be part of the global agenda, which is technology.
Gosh, you might find that they build the robots that put us all out of jobs pretty soon. Incredible kids, really.
Dr. Chilu, the floor is yours.
You may have to unmute him from your end.
Oh, there it goes.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you very much for the wonderful welcome. I appreciate everybody taking time to share our journey. I've had the great privilege and pleasure of working with Zambians, and I guess given that BBC, CNN, and the Queen of England are bragging about it, the world's most brilliant youth in various aspects in terms of helping them realize their dreams, transforming their dreams into reality. And I'll go over quickly how we got started and where we are and where we're going. I'm also privileged to have somebody we've worked with on the program on board. I don't like saying too much, so I like the results to speak for themselves. And I think that's kind of pretty impressive. So I'll start with a bit of show and tell. So this is today's newspaper in the Daily Mail. So I think you see Sela Kasepa and the Queen of England, and you see myself, Mutemwa, who you'll meet later. And so at least we've been fortunate that this is something everybody's talking about. So quickly, I'll get everybody started with how did we get here? As in ZISD, I started that in 2009. And we started with just supporting one student. So my background, as Frida and Chita mentioned, is aerospace engineering. So when I was going to school, I had, I think, 3 options. I was a top student at the top school in Zambia. And so I figured if I'm going to pick a career choice, I'd pick something pretty hard. So either it's going to be a neurosurgeon, I would be a nuclear physicist, or a rocket scientist. The nuclear physics sounded like a lot of fun, but I realized that things tend to blow up in their faces and I didn't want to be a statistic. So that kind of ruled that one out. And then a neurosurgeon sounded like pretty bad, but then people do die and it's a bloody job. So that kind of passed on that too. So I was kind of stuck to the third option, which is rocket science. And I was fortunate that I did pretty well. So from Telembe, I skipped grade 12, then went to Florida Tech for my bachelor's degree, did my master's and PhD in aerospace engineering at Georgia Tech. And I was fortunate enough to have worked on pretty cool stuff. So for my PhD studies, I worked on a scramjet, which is a really fast engine, which allows you to fly anywhere in the world in an hour. So this stuff is faster than witchcraft. But during one of those classes, when they're learning about rockets and how to get people to space, we're talking about chain reactions. And I started to think, well, all these reactions which happen, you all just need to build a critical mass of radicals and things take off. And then I was thinking, well, if it works for rockets and we can send people to Mars, Moon, and everywhere else, can we apply that same thing to people? Because you're always overwhelmed by some of the problems Africa and Zambia faces, and it almost seems like something with no start or end. But I was like, well, if you apply the same radical approach where you could empower a few people, and those people will now be the chain reactions, they'll be the radicals who think differently, because there has to be a mindset change. You cannot do things business as usual and expect things to work and go from there. Then I thought we had the fighting chance. So I didn't have to focus on Zambia's 20 million people. I could focus on just a few people, empower those, and those will be the agents of change. And that's why, even for this discussion, I'm fortunate that I don't have to cover all of it myself. I'll delegate some of that to Mutemwa, because I think we've kind of done a fairly good job with that aspect. So I think that was how we got started. So I was like, well, how do I get started? So my mom was a teacher at Ndeke, and she was a deputy headmistress. And so she told me about one of our students, Martin Kabwe, who was very brilliant, but he was struggling to pay his school fees. So one of the questions that came up was, how do we empower that? So this Martin Kabwe, the first student we started with. So I realized you couldn't start with everybody, you could start with something. So I was a grad student, actually a Brock College grad student. And I decided, well, instead of me worrying about my own scholarship, I could pay somebody and pay them through school. So Martin was unfortunate that he had just lost his father and couldn't pay his school fees, and he was about to drop out. But turns out that Martin had actually one of the top 10 highest scores in all of Zambia. So for me, it didn't make any sense that, well, somebody as brilliant as he was could drop out. So initially, when my mom used to tell me about him, I thought maybe he was just the teacher's pet. Maybe he was just like, but when I looked at the results and compared to all the kids in Zambia, and I realized he was a top 10 talent, I was like, we might be passing up on the next Einstein, on the next Edison, or the next Zuckerberg, just because of inefficiency. So I scrounged up a couple of bucks and paid for him. When the money ran low, I decided, well, I'll stop at that, and I'll find
a network challenges in Zambia.
Yeah, if we kill his video, it might at least allow the audio to come through.
Yeah, I killed it, and
he'll come back.
Yeah, he will. He's
but in the
Zambia
interim,
right now.
I think what we're hearing here is you start somewhere, and 2009 programs don't just evolve overnight. It takes, this is 2009, so what's the math? That's like 12 years ago, right? It takes a while for programs to evolve, but we have to start somewhere. And I had the pleasure of meeting Chiluwata when he was in Atlanta, when we hosted our first Zambian at 50 independence celebration. And when you have that like-minded interests, it's easy for us to, coming back to what I shared early on, collaborate together. So I'm just putting in fillers while we wait for him, and I don't want to do the introduction of Mutemwa, who blew my mind when I spoke with him on Tuesday. So I'll wait until we get him back on video. Is he back on?
Not yet.
Okay, so I apologize. So in fact, I can fill in some more. Chiluwata works for General Electric in North Carolina, and he's actually in Zambia right now. He has the opportunity to work at GE from Zambia, which is amazing. And something else that he has done, which I believe is an opportunity for us to all learn from, is he actually partners with his brother, Peter Lungu, who you saw in the BBC video. And sometimes we think about sibling support or even just family support when you're doing business. I think that there's a story to be told here about how we can each support each other within our families. And I know Peter had signed up to attend this. I don't see him yet, but it's one of those things that, one, you start somewhere, 2009, and the journey that has evolved in the paper that he just shared. And then also just being able to get support from the family, and being able to work with your family on a common goal. And I just admitted him back. So there we go. And I think the video killed you, Chiluwata. So you can go ahead.
Yeah, my apologies. So this is why we need to develop Zambia. We still have a few challenges to go. And I'm operating from Ndola, so my apologies. But this is why we do what we do. So as a Brock College student, I had to get I believed in the power of collaboration. So I got Dr. Caleb Fundanga, whose signature was on money. And so whenever I went to one of these offices, people would be like, you look like you need a scholarship, but then I would show them the guy who's co-signing with me and show him Zambian money, and they're like, oh, this guy's legit. So that's how we got hundreds of people's school fees paid for. And one of the people whose school fees we paid for was Sela Kasepa. But before we got there, I actually had to give up my car because you have to bootstrap a lot of these investments yourself. So when you're starting, nobody believes in yourself. So you have to believe in yourself more than anybody else. You have to believe in yourself 1,000 times. And so I sacrificed my car. And this is Atlanta I was living in, where the land of no scrubs. So you're giving up your car as a young guy in college, it's probably not the most popular thing you could do. But it was worth the sacrifice because I knew where it was going. After that, when people saw how much skin in the game I had, we had more foundations come in, and we were able to sponsor tens and hundreds of kids through school. After that, and the idea was we didn't want any of the brilliant kids to drop out of school like Martin Kabwe because they didn't have enough funding. After that, we decided to say, well, let's work on other aspects as well, because development is a multidimensional problem. So you have education, which is a part of it. You also have technology, which is a huge part of it. So we worked on renewable energy. And so the kids were able to make solar suitcases. Unfortunately, I'm able to show some of the pictures because it seems like my laptop doesn't like the internet connectivity. So I'm using another. But so we did renewable energy. And then we decided to focus on software development. So there was a girl we sponsored at Fatima, Sela Kasepa. And I think some of you have seen her photos. So when the nuns, Sister Angela reached out to us and said, hey, there's this girl really brilliant, but the parents don't have the means to pay for her school fees and she's about to drop out. Can we help out? And it seemed like another Martin Kabwe story because this was a woman who was very brilliant, who had long ways to go. And society just didn't allow her because we have all these artificial constraints on money and school fees and everything else. So we paid for her. When she finished Fatima, she got a 99. So she got 9 ones in all her subjects. And then she was like, hey, what's next? And we were like, you need to go to Harvard. She looked at us like what? What kind of grass are you guys smoking? But we're like, no, really, you need to go to Harvard. We think you're the type of person going to Harvard. But she's like, I don't know any Zambians who go to Harvard. We're like, whoa, you be the first one. So that's how we pushed her to Harvard. We kept reminding her, and I think it's my executive director who kept calling every day. And just to get Peter off her back, she decided to apply to Harvard anyway on the last day of admission, just because she was getting tired of the daily phone calls and, hey, have you applied? Have you submitted your application and everything else? And that's how she applied to Harvard. She got in. Actually, she got in like a month before everybody else. So the admissions guys were there calling Sela, make sure you come in. She was so like in American football, she was like a #1 draft pick for Harvard. So she did that. And then while she was at Harvard, what we like to do is the people we work with, how do you empower them to be able to help give back? So I asked her like, hey, what project can we work on together? Was at Harvard. She was like, well, there's this robotic stuff, and I know you guys are into software development. We had done some software development program at Princeton University. And so the introduction to computer science class, which is taught at Princeton, was being taught to students in Zambia in the first year. So we leveled the playing field that way. And so Sela was like, we could build off of that and we could do robotics. And I was like, yeah, actually, we planned to do robotics last year. And then there was Olympics for robotics. So Sela was able to get some funding from Harvard. So Harvard believed in us enough. They were like, we'll actually throw more money at you so that you can bring more Selas back to us. And Sela, by the way, was doing computer science. So people were like, and she remember she was asking me, like, girls don't do computer science. I was like, yeah, so what? You should be the first girl. And of course, the rest is history. We got the Queen's Young Leaders Award, which we nominated Sela for our work in STEM and robotics. Teresa May was talking about Zambian kids making software over Brexit, and obviously CNN, BBC, you've seen those pieces of videos they've done on us and showing how much in the future Africans are ahead of. And of course, today, Sela graduated from Harvard and she's working at Microsoft. So I think we've done pretty well in that area. And another follow-up to that success was, because we like to have wave after wave of success, because the S in ZISD is it's Zambian Institute for Sustainable Development. So I was very big on things being sustainable. So how do you sustain these developments? The only way you could do that is I wanted to make sure that the youth themselves were the ones empowered. So this is why I want Mutemwa to be on CNN or BBC, because it shows that we've gotten to the next level where I don't even have to talk about the vision anymore. The next generation has bought into the vision, and the minute the next person from there buys into the vision, we have a chain reaction of development, and nobody's going to catch us after that. So we did pretty well in that area. We formed the robotics national team, and I'll let Mutemwa talk about it, but essentially when they wanted to have the Olympics for robotics, they reached out to me and said, hey, in Zambia, can you put together a team of people? Because we know you have access to the top talent who will be competing in the Olympics for robotics. And so Zambia does pretty well at sport, but we don't really qualify to the Olympics. I think the exception to that is the women's national team, which is going to Japan this year. But for the most part, we don't do that. So Zambia, but on the robotics front, which is a new frontier, Zambia has actually been very celebrated in terms of our representation, and that's allowed our students to market themselves and do on the program. So we work pretty well in that area, and we do quite a few things at ZISD. So we have a soccer team. Actually, I just left halfway through the ZISD Indeni Women's Premier League. So there's a new thing now. Women in Zambia actually are in the Premier League. There are 14 teams, and ZISD is one of them. Because we're very big on women empowerment, that's why you have the Sela Kasepa, who went to Harvard. You have Mwengo, who's the first captain of the robotics team at Stanford. And we don't just believe, we believe talking is cheap, and we have to go with our actions. So those are the kind of actions we always push for. And we're always looking forward to collaborate. So I've known Rafrida for a while now. And I was more than delighted when she asked me to speak at this platform to say anytime, because I always know that this is how we empower each other. I can share my story of how a boy from Petauke who eats lumanda like everybody else could be able to build something which year after year, for the past 5 years, Princeton only picks like 4 kids from Zambia, and we always have kids picked from ZISD. So Mutemwa is one of them. We have others, and sometimes I joke that if we continue at this rate, we'll have to have a dorm for ZISD just like Princeton. But then we also have others as well. And given that I want to give as much time for discussions and the fact that we have technical challenges, for now, I'll thank everybody and welcome my prodigy, Mutemwa Masheke, who's gone above and beyond. When we told him he was going to be at Princeton, he thought we're blowing smoke. But true to form, he's calling in live from Princeton. And there's no better person to continue talking about my vision and the vision of Zambia's next generation than Mutemwa. Thank you.
Thanks, Chiluwata. Mutemwa, go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. So I want to say thank you so much to Dr. Brazo, and thank you so much, Chita, for just making this space for all Zambians to gather around. I'm seeing so many people in this Zoom, and it just reminds me of just the kind of people we are and how amazing Zambia is as a country. I also want to thank Mr. Chilu for all the work he's doing and continues to do as part of ZISD, and also for the very kind words that have been said. Mr. Chilu is such a great speaker. I always tell the people at ZISD that he speaks in capital letters. So that's always really nice to hear. So hi, everyone. My name is Mutemwa Masheke, and I was born in Lusaka, Zambia. And so, you know, I grew up in a family where I had a single mom and 3 brothers. So that was always fun. It was a loud house. And the first thing she told me about college when we sat down to have the discussion is that she wasn't paying. And that was kind of where the whole journey began, because I think that aligns closely with the vision that ZISD has in mind, is to kind of bridge opportunities with people who come from backgrounds like myself. But I feel like the definition of ZISD as a college prep would be something that doesn't really do service to the full breadth of opportunities that it opens up to you too. I think it's an opportunity center, and I feel like that's kind of the vision of what these kinds of institutions should be looking at. And so I began my journey at ZISD as a student tutor, and partly while I was studying for my SAT exams, which are entrance exams to the USA, I was also teaching there at ZISD with fellow students. And when I wrote the exam, I got a 1540 out of 1600, which is the top 1% of the millions of people who take the SAT each year. So that was super exciting. And I think the interesting thing about not knowing what to do next about big life decisions is you become desperate and you become hungry to try anything. And so that's when I was approached by Mr. Kachinga, Mr. Peter Lungu, Mr. Elijah Lungu, and Mr. Chilu Lungu, who decided to give me the opportunity to be the team captain for Zambia's national robotics team, which is, I mean, I've been great at physics, loved physics my entire life, but that was a step beyond, because it's not just building cutting edge technology at a very young age, because at the time I was 17 when I was asked to build a robot. I was asked to manage a team and kind of exercise empathy to kind of coordinate all these wonderful talents that I found myself in, just some amazing people. I think the youngest member of our team was 12 years. And it just blows my mind to think about how much we accomplished. Thereafter, I put in my college applications. In the time period, I was kind of working to get my applications in while being at the team captain of the Zambia robotics team. And we finally traveled to Mexico City. I know there's some representatives from Mexico in this call, which is really nice to hear. It's kind of sad because now I'm not the only Zambian who's been to Mexico, but it's great to know that there's so many people within that space. And we did a remarkable job representing our country. I even had the opportunity to meet the then president of Mexico when he was passing by doing rounds. So that was super exciting. And thereafter, I submitted all my applications. I heard back from, I'm grateful to this day to hear back from numerous schools, notably Princeton University, where I'm a current undergraduate student. Other than that, I think there are a couple of people from Atlanta who might be familiar with Emory, where I was offered the Robert W. Woodruff Scholars, which is the most prestigious scholarship award the school offers there. So that was really nice. And I think thereafter, while our stay was within Atlanta, we had prior conversations with the CNN team at the headquarters in Atlanta, and they had caught the wave of the work we were doing in Mexico City. They actually sent a film crew to kind of document our journey during our time in Mexico. And then we also had the privilege of doing an interview at CNN in Mexico City, which was so much fun. And then when we came back to Zambia, BBC had also expressed interest in covering our story and had sent through film crews to Lusaka, Zambia, where they also met the rest of the team and kind of got to see part of the process and our beginnings, which we're really humbled by, because I think part of what gets in the way of Zambian innovation is people not knowing just really who Zambians are. And I feel like it's great that we have initiatives like this that kind of chip away at the whole hidden nature of everything. And so in between my time as a team captain and my time before coming to Princeton University, the robotics team kept reaching out and doing work with the United Nations and several other international organizations that wanted us to do rounds and kind of explore the organization, Zambia Robotics and ZISD, and the kind of work that they were doing to empower young minds to take up space within the technology sector and be future leaders. And so we were also privileged to kind of extend the opportunity that we had to be at the frontier by opening it up to other young Zambian people. Currently, I am a computer science major at Princeton University with a certificate in entrepreneurship, and most of my academic time is spent bouncing back between coding classes, robotics, and AI classes, as well as entrepreneurship, which is something that I've gotten very heavily interested in of late. Outside my academic time, I spend my time on a couple of student executive boards, most notably I'm the vice president of the Africa Summit, an initiative on campus, which is just a collective that tries to unify the African diaspora by bringing together some prominent figures and trying to, I guess, have established chemistry amongst those minds. And notably, we've invited, and we've had on campus President Kagame from Rwanda and President Nana Akufo-Addo from Ghana, which I was privileged to meet in my freshman year. So that was really exciting. And part of our work is we also, in the spirit of giving back, we empower many African early stage tech companies through a pitch competition we hold, and we give out lots of money to support entrepreneurship on the continent. So it's a very broad range of things. And I recently got interested into the industry side of things. Initially, I wanted to solve problems using technology, and so I decided to intern at Microsoft as an Explorer intern, which is both software development and program management. And in the process, I learned a lot about empathy and what gathers people around technology. And so I decided to go back as a program manager intern and kind of merge technology with entrepreneurship. And I feel like that's a big foundation behind where I see myself going into the future and kind of giving back to Zambian people. Is I believe that part of our Zambian culture is behind this belief that it takes a village to raise a child, literally. And I think it just shows through even Mr. Chilu's story that something that's very unique about our culture is we love to support one another, and we try to hold each other's hands as we are going through this. And this is why we're uniting, even on Zoom during one of the worst pandemics in our lifetime, to kind of, get in touch with each other and try to inspire one another. And I feel like part of the future involves kind of empowering African people through technology and entrepreneurship. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mutemwa and Chilu. That was very impressive. So much to digest. You two have done so much. Mutemwa, it's hearing all the things that you've been able to do as a sophomore, meaning that it's only been about 2 years since you've been here. And you speak so confidently, and you've been able to walk in these rooms and hold your ground as an intern with presidents and leading organizations on campus. What about the Zambian experience would you say prepared you for the opportunities that you have been exposed to? And then what are some things that you had to unlearn from how we operate as Zambians, and how would you tell young Zambians right now who are looking at you and aspiring to rethink some of the things that maybe we look at as defects, or like use the Zambian background as a superpower, and like not lose what makes us Zambia, but take that as an opportunity as we enter into the world. So just really curious what you think about that.
Okay. So first of all, thank you. I think that's a very important question, because I think that a lot of our involvement in robotics and AI, as me as an alumni of ZISD and the rest of the ZISD organization, whether it's something that happens consciously or not, I believe it's conscious, is just how much of, I think, Zambian culture is represented in us trying to pull together and unite like-minded people to work towards the same goal. I think my experience coming to the United States has been kind of being more exposed to a more individualistic environment. There are a lot more monopolies this side than I think Zambian culture would allow for. And I think that part of what empowers people really is the spirit of cooperation and collaboration and the sense of Ubuntu, like we really are in this together. And I think that that's something that I feel is a superpower, because the rest of the members of the team that we work with at ZISD, we're always having conversations about different ventures or different technology ideas that we're trying to enact in real life. I think Musenya Ngoma and Dali Somoyo just launched, they are one of the previous members, they just launched their business called Virtual Groceries, which is like, it empowers marketeers using some digital space, which is nothing that Zambia has ever done before. And I'm very privileged to have met people like that, because during the Genesis process, we've been able to bounce ideas off of each other and kind of curate, even though it's not my project, it's something that I've been able to give input in. And I feel like it's something that I'm very proud of about our culture. And I think it's not what I've unlearned when I got here is a sense of not necessarily a lack of patriotism for Zambia, because I feel like it's been reinforced when I came here. I have understood what exactly it means to have a spirit of trying to understand how powerful business ventures can be used to seep through the lives of several other people and empower people on a large scale. And it's no secret that, you know, organizations like this, like Andela, InterSwitch, Flutterwave are all African businesses that have really thrived because they've been funded heavily and supported by African investors and African business owners. And these are all huge tech companies that are valued over $1 billion now. And it's just very easy to see how we as African and Zambian people have an edge within this new age of technology.
I love that. Thank you so much. Really brings me joy to hear that your sense of patriotism has increased, because I think some of the problems in Zambia that we have even within our leaders is there's no sense of pride in our country. So really glad to hear that our youth and our future are proud of Zambia and want to fly that flag higher. I want to shift gears a little bit and to Dr. Chilu and just ask about your experience with starting something so new and you know, sailing uncharted waters. How did you stay committed, right? You started in 2019 and a lot of your growth and traction sounds like it happened over the last 5 years or so, but you've been slowly building away, making personal sacrifices. And I'm sure there were a lot of people who said, you know, are you sure? And threw a lot of doubt your way. How did you stay, one, committed to it and empowered in the possibilities so that you could give other people these opportunities that you've been able to give?
Well, I think the short answer to that is you have to keep your eyes on the prize. So as somebody who's a rocket scientist, when you launch something to go into space, it's very, very, very far away. And you have to know that something will get to Saturn, Mars, or wherever. As essentially you're reaching for the stars and shooting for that. So I think you have to have a certain inner belief. I was fortunate that I had gone to the top school in Zambia. And I was fortunate that my dad had gone to the top school in Zambia as well at his time, Hillcrest. So I kind of believed in education being an agent of change. So I kind of saw what it could do, right? As in, I think when my dad left his village, because back in the day of Kaunda, they'd only give the top Zambians funding and they'd go to schools like Hillcrest or David Kaunda. So my dad was the only one who left his village. And I think if you look at the people who left his village then, it was my dad, Honorable Doris Ilia's dad, and Honorable Sumaili, his husband. So very few people in that generation left. So very few people were used, but I'd gotten used to beating the odds, right? As in when I said I wanted to study rocket science, people were like, why would you want to do that? Do you know any Zambians who does that? But I was like, well, I'll be the first one. So I've always had that inner belief. And I think my parents built me to be a person who believed in myself, even when nobody else did that. So you always did what was right. And I think my dad had a saying, like, Chilu, I don't care what everybody says, even as a family, even if your aunts tell you this, your uncles tell you that, ultimately, whatever you do should come from you. So I had that inner belief that we could do it. But also the beauty about it is having won a lot of JETS fairs and others, it was an opportunity for us to be able to move ahead. So I think I was privileged to have that access to know that we had really brilliant people in Zambia and we could do it. And so I believed in that. I think I've also seen the very focused on just passing exams and really it's mostly building stuff. We build robots, we don't just code, right? We build solar suitcases and power light up schools and neighborhoods. So that's kind of how we've always looked at it. So yeah, a lot of people said no, and we got a lot of no's. But for me, the biggest issue is having the right people on board, right? So I remember when I was getting started, I wrote I said, which people do I need? I need very smart people to be on my board. So I got Dr. Caleb Funanga, not because the signature was on money, but because he's really brilliant. He was voted the first African-based central bank governor in the whole world. So he was smarter than Greenspan, Bernanke, and of these guys. So when I wrote to him and he was like, hey, there's this brilliant kid in Atlanta who wants me to work with that. And I think Dora was like, hey, yeah, that's my cousin. I knew that I was on the right path because even the really smart people wanted to be on board. When President Rupia Banda saw the solar suitcase, and after that, I was invited to his house, I knew that the ideas were very solid. So it was just a matter of time that would happen. I remember when we wanted to start robotics 10 years ago, people were like, kids in Africa, they don't have power. Why are you worried about robots? Are you out of your mind? I was like, well, but that's where you need to be, because if we're going to be ahead in Africa, and Zambia to be particular, it's got to be things which nobody's expecting us to lead in, right? So people think, oh, we're still dealing with load shedding and everything else. And yet we're now lighting up the world, and BBC and CNN is bragging about kids in Zambia, right? Not about kids in America, but about kids in Zambia who are advancing robotics. So I think for me, it's just that belief and having a very solid, dedicated team. That's kind of the issue. Having people like the Mutemwa, the ZLA'S, my team in Zambia is very driven. And so I think that's kind of the issue. Have a very solid team around you and really believe in yourself, even when everybody else tells you no. Because ultimately it's you, it's self-belief, right? As in you have to believe in yourself. And even if everybody else in the world is wrong and you're right, eventually those odds play out. So the fact that people thought nobody in Africa could do robots, and now we're being celebrated for that, getting the Queen's Young Leaders Award for that, then we know that we've kind of done the right thing. So that's at least how I look at it. So perseverance and eyes on the prize. Thanks.
Thanks, Chilu, that's amazing. Love the background around your parents instilling belief, and now the Lungu brothers are running ZISD and reaching for the stars. So I want to shift gears and open up the floor for questions from the audience. So if you're able, please come off mute and ask Mutemwa and Chilu your questions directly.
I guess I'll start. My name is Mukuke Chipanta. I'm also an aerospace engineer over here in Connecticut. Hugely impressed, Dr. Lungu. You're definitely a trailblazer, and you do us proud for sure. I like what you mentioned about sustainable development. That's a key thing. And also, Mutemwa, really impressed by you, young man, blazing the trail for us. A question for you. So when you think about the future as a young Zambian in technology, what excites you when you look at the future? What's exciting you right now?
So thank you so much for the question. And I think what's very interesting about all these breaking bounds that we're making with technology is, I guess, human beings coming to terms with our limits physically, because then we can no longer see robotics and AI and all this kind of technology as an opponent, but rather something that we take by our side with us into the future, right? You can make the argument that if back in the day, if we used cars, then who would carry kings and queens on their backs, right? But then now, as we are making discussions about, oh, we can actually mine minerals and resources on the moon, right? No human being has the physical capability to fly. And so I think it's with that admission or that sense of seeing technology as something that is part of human conception and human like abilities. It says more about us, which technology that we develop rather than technology itself. And I think that because we've been able to see technology more as a partner rather than an enemy, we've been able to open ourselves up to really exciting ventures and allow our minds to explore. So I think it's just the mental openness that this has brought us to, in realizing that technology really does revolve around the human experience and that we have the power to control what happens with our future. And so that's really nice to see about the tech going forward.
Thanks, Mukuka, for your question. Bella, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Chita. My question is for Dr. Lungu. You mentioned earlier in the conversation that one of your key priorities when you're recruiting students to participate in your program is to give back. So just trying to find out more about how do you overcome that barrier, because it's something that I struggle with in my professional career with working with teams in Zambia, that ability or willingness to volunteer or give up your time to help others. So I'm just trying to find out like what strategies you've used to really encourage your students to be willing to give back.
But Chairman, thank you so much for the question. The way we look at that is in everything we do, we make giving back almost a requirement. So you force people to volunteer, essentially. So when we started with the scholarship, 1/3 of the criteria was the dedication to community service. We'd ask them, what community service activities do you do? Do you volunteer in the community? Do you tutor other kids? Do you help out at orphanages? So essentially, even though somebody who was poor could still help out somebody poorer than them, right? As in, so that was how it was. I remember when we gave out the first scholarship, there was a David Kaunda. After Martin's Kawe, the next school went was David Kaunda, because we targeted all the top schools. So we had David Kaunda, Hillcrest, Fatima, Ndola Tech, and a whole bunch of other schools. So the idea was the guys at Fatima were like, well, at David Kaunda were like, you know what, even though I need the scholarship, there's this guy, Peter Siyunyi, who needs a scholarship more than me. He's actually not here today because he's working as a Malonda at night, as a security guard at night, so that he can pay for his way through school. So he'd work at night as a security guard, generate a little bit of money, live in a parking lot in Mrs. compound, and pay for his way through school. So even that, when those kids showed us, it showed that they had compassion and love for other people, because think about it, you're competing for a job, right? And you're like, actually, there's somebody more qualified than me for the job. Give that to them first. So those are the kind of qualities we looked for. So even those other kids got scholarships, but the fact that they were willing to be the brother's keeper, literally, and make sure that somebody was well looked after is a criteria. So a lot of it is community service. So even when Mutemwa and the team came back from Mexico, they would go teach robotics to other schools as well. So we make that as part of the things we try and do. And so, and obviously it's harder to come by, but we try and make sure that the people work with first. A prerequisite is how willing are they willing to give back? Because even for like the people in the ZISD fellowships, so initially we just give scholarships, but we realized that we teach SAT and college prep for kids trying to go from college to university. Because if you look at in Zambia, only about 17.5% of people finish grade 12, but what's even worse is only 2% of people get tertiary education. So there's a big gap in terms of people getting university degrees. And that's why you see even in politics, there's this big debate about grade 12 certificates. But anyway, so to help with that, we said, well, in Zambia, if the system is flooded with students, can we take them abroad to the Harvard, to the Princetons, to the Dartmouth, to other schools as well? And as part of that, those schools look at community service as well. So the fellows would sponsor people who cannot afford to pay for their SAT, but would say, you have to teach other people as part of the requirement. Some people would be like, no, I'm not willing to do that. And even if they're really brilliant, would not help those people because that's not the mindset. Because what we're looking for is agents of change, right? There has to be a paradigm shift in the mindset and ethos of the next generation of young people. You cannot still be a Milo society and expect things to change today, right? So we have to do things differently, and we have to have people who are willing to sacrifice for the next person. And so that's kind of how we look at it. Is in the interview process, we weigh heavily somebody's previous community service and commitments to give back as part of the support from us as well. Thanks. That's a great question.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Any other audience questions?
I had a question. Is that okay?
Yes, of course.
Good to see you, by the way. I just wanted to ask you, Dr. Lungu, thank you so much for being here. Have you had any buy-in from the local universities in Zambia, and then also maybe specifically the engineering departments? And what kind of support are you receiving from that, if such has been the case?
That's a great question. I think even on CNN, I think Mutemwa was asked, have you had buy-in from the Zambian public? I think the irony is you actually get buy-in from abroad first. So it was easier. Mutemwa, before going to Mexico, had asked ZLA'S if they could feature us. They said they couldn't do that. But when we featured on BBC and CNN, it was easier to get featuring in Zambia. The same thing with the universities. Harvard was willing to fund us first, right? They're now Zambian universities, after they've seen that, who have said, can we partner with us on that? So unfortunately, in Zambia, we still seem to have an attitude where something foreign is more valued than local. In general, I'm not saying everywhere it happens all the time. So you must have to validate it outside. Even the stuff we do in media, we've done about 7 shows for ZISD's media department has done 7 shows for CNN, including African Voices and Inside Africa. So it's only when you do that that you can come back to Zambia and say, hey, I'm good enough for that. So a guy like me, I'm sure I could have stayed in Zambia, but the fact that I went and studied rocket science, I worked for the biggest companies in the US, including General Electric, it's easier for me to come back and sell myself, right? So somehow we almost have it backwards. So we do get support now, but I think we could get a lot more support. And that's why we have these discussions, right? So part of the aim for this is we'd like to say, how do we collaborate together, right? As in we have people who know software, we have people who know how to get resources together. How do we now empower the next generation of leaders where we can now have big tech centers in Africa, right? The next Silicon Valley can be in Zambia. I don't see why Zuckerberg has to be American, right? The next Zuckerberg, Bezos can be Zambian. The fact that Mutemwa is at Princeton and has done 2 internships, right? In the first 2 years at university, tells you that the caliber of people getting there is high enough, right? The fact that Seba Kasepa is also at Microsoft, where at ZISD we have people at Goldman Sachs interning at all these places, tells me that Zambia actually has the caliber to be the next big thing. And the next billion-dollar company, I believe, is going to be a Zambian one in technology. And so we just have to find a way to support each other in different aspects. And a lot of it is just through connections. So, so if you have any connections at universities, other places, we're more than willing to talk with them as well. But we try, for the investors, the biggest thing we try and do is get people who can help teach other people computer science and robotics, right? So that they can be mentors to the young team. So that's the involvement, but we'd like maybe even the high departments to be more involved as well. But as you know, in Zambia, you kind of have to take the lead first. We are the government. So if you wait for the government to do stuff for you, it's going to take a while. And we just have to be more proactive. Thank you.
Chilu, to piggyback on that, how do people find you and you know, learn more about the work that you guys are doing? Do you have a site? How do people reach you?
Yeah, we have several sites, but the first one for a website is ZISD.org. And then but most of the people in Zambia reach us through our Facebook page. So we have a ZISD college prep page, which helps kids learn how to get to America for college, because that's the first thing is if I have a young person, how do I get to America? We also have the Zambia Robotics Facebook page, which has a lot of following, and we post a lot of videos there, progress on how the team is doing as well. So those are the 2 main avenues, as in because we're largely focused on young people, Facebook, Instagram, those are the avenues which people seem to follow a lot. But also, I'm always very open. So anytime somebody wants, my email is chiluwata@gmail.com or at developzambia.org. So everybody is always free to reach out to me. I'm always free to share ideas and find a way to help people, not just on our projects, but on their projects as well, because I think it's a collaborative effort. And anytime we can have people bounce off ideas, we are going to be a lot more effective. So definitely, I welcome all of you to reach out to me and find ways in which we can mentor the people working with, support us financially, material-wise, and just idea-wise, because I think the biggest trade is actually ideas. So somebody might have a brilliant idea, and if you're in the right direction, the rest will follow. So thank you so much, and we look forward to collaborating with you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Chilu, and thank you, Dr. Henry, for that question. Any other questions from the audience?
Yeah, sure. I got a question for both. So Chiluwata, good to see you. I haven't seen you in like years. We went to high school together.
Yeah.
And Mutemwa, I'm very proud of you. So I'm in technology. I'm a cloud architect in financial services. So for Mutemwa, the question I have for you is, what do you see yourself doing, say, in 2031? And then for Dr. Chilu, what's the next stage after this? Because you're working with kids that are coming out of primary school, high school, and early college. But what's the next stage for Mutemwa and his peers? So are you going to create like maybe a funding vehicle for their ideas that folks over here and folks that are interested in helping support those ideas can participate?
Yes,
Dr. Chilu, would you like to go first?
Yeah, so I think we've looked at several ideas. The first thing is the people who've gone through the ZLA'S program or other Zambians, we support them any way they can. So, but the biggest one is we're trying to build a technology center. So we have some land in Lusaka, And we're trying to build a technology center where we can bring in kids from everywhere. And now they can now start being the next Silicon Valley. So people can come share ideas, work on software and other ideas. So that's the first thing we're working on. For the robotics team, we're also trying to have a national championship, because the other question is, how do I make it somebody in Shangombo to have access to robotics, right? It's one thing for Mutemwa to have gone to Princeton, but how do we get 1,000 Mutemwas, right, who can do the something he's doing? And so trying to scale that up as well. But a lot of it is just have a technology center, and also if people have expertise in those areas, get them to volunteer their time and resources to the cause. The beauty about this is we can do things online. So please feel free to reach out to us. So I think that's the next step, is if Mutemwa wants to come back to Zambia and set up the next Silicon Valley company, which is worth $1 billion, we should be able to work with him on that. ZISD is also working on certain ideas in terms of software development as well for some industry applications. And we'd like to have the best kids, not just in Zambia or Africa, but the world, all centered in Zambia or around the world, who can work with us to be able to generate wealth and empower their communities.
Thanks.
And I guess to answer the question you asked earlier about where I see myself in 2031. So I think that's just a great time frame, because 10 years from now, I think that I would have had enough encounters with the people back home and Zambians in order to properly understand the entrepreneur ecosystem and what barriers people face in like establishing ventures within that space. Because I think one thing I've come to realize is I'm not necessarily a proper representation of an average Zambian. There are people who are going through situations that are even, I guess, less privileged than where I even started. And I think what's interesting to think is when you think about those individual people, there are still geniuses, as Mr. Chiluwata mentioned, like game-changing, like next level, just really talented human beings that are just waiting to be uncovered. And it really unsettles me to think about how little potential is being tapped into these spaces, right? If, for example, someone isn't able to have clean water to drink, for example, then it would be very hard for them to take the risk of even starting a venture or a business in the technology center. And I believe technology is the future, because coding is cheap. You could literally just buy a laptop and make yourself a really, really valuable enterprise within years. And I think that part of my commitment is into making sure that we have a reproducible model of entrepreneurial success within the Zambian ecosystem. And so I feel like a lot of my work is probably reaching out to people of several backgrounds, of course, in Zambia, but really tapping into that unlocked potential and also trying to de-risk the space so that you don't have to sacrifice so much just to start a business. And I feel like a lot of my work will be kind of focused around empowering other people to take up space as well and make their names known, the same way I've been able to do through ZISD and the other lovely people in my life who've allowed me to have such opportunities. So.
Thank you.
Amazing. I think we have time for 1 or 2 more questions. Again, encourage you to come off speaker and ask the questions directly here.
Hey everybody, can you guys hear me fine?
Yeah, we can hear you, Zenga.
Hey, so sorry I'm driving. I didn't want to miss this, but I also had things that I had to do. Thank you guys. First of all, a comment, just it's really refreshing to see the brilliance that you guys are portraying and how much you're just impacting our people. Chiluwata, I thank you. Mutemwa, good job. Very, very encouraging. So I think one I guess ask that I have is just like, okay, so like what do we do, right? Like what I heard what you guys are doing, but like how do we, like what's the ask of us? And like that's one. And then two is like for the gentleman that asked the question before, he said that he's a cloud architect, right? I'm a software engineer, and it's like, so how do we, I guess, collaborate with people back home or people yeah, people were just like telling back home, and how do we help financial wise, but then also how do we move forward? So is that something that you guys have thought about? I don't know if I'm making sense, but like hopefully something sticks in that. And I'm gonna go back on mute.
And before you answer, that's another one of our brilliant minds here in Atlanta, but that is the right question. So what, and I believe Chanda put that in the chat box as well. What's the ask?
And how can we help? Yep.
So I think in Zambia, we're always touchy about talking about money, but I think you have to, like, these robots don't build themselves. So typically the budget for the Zambia robotics team, it depends on what you're doing that year, but it's usually between $25,000 and $50,000, depending on the scope. If you just the team traveling, depends also where the competition is held. And it's always a difficult issue to deal with in Zambia because people are like, why are you wasting money on robots? People need to eat. I'm like, well, if we keep building these robots, people have lots to eat in the future, right? So people aren't really so focused on the now that it's harder to look at the future. But if you have to fly a team of people to, like, the first competition was in Washington, D.C., the next one was in Mexico City, which Mutemwa attended. The previous year was in Dubai. All those are expenses. You have to build robots, which have to be imported. You have to buy laptops. So whether it's physical cash or the actual materials, like for the next year, we're looking at 20 laptops we need, because not only are we training people on the team, we actually want to train trainers, so that if you have 5 sessions, you have 100 people trained to go out there and now be preaching the word of software, right? As in that is the next thing to do. And that's how you scale up your operation. So those are some of the things we're looking at is get laptops, get these robotics kits, because this is a hands-on experience. Each kit is $2,000 and people have to learn to be practical, because not like Zambia doesn't have brilliant people. The issue is we don't apply ourselves. So we're very good at talking about all these theoretical things, all these degrees people have. But the question is, okay, well, so what? Like, what have you done to solve Zambia's problem? So for me, that's how I look at it, right? I can't be bragging that, oh, well, I'm a rocket scientist, I build jet engines which generate power, and then there's load shedding, right? So at the ZISD office, there's solar power for everything, and we power community schools and everything else with that. So the biggest issue is the software. The software is relatively cheap, so we need people to volunteer at the time. So if somebody has a background in marketing, we need people to get the word out. A lot of stuff, it involves media. That's how you get support. So if somebody knows connections, we've been fortunate. CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera have worked. But if there's more people can get the word out, the same way Frida was able to get us to be more of a talking point today. Those are some of the asks nobody can do a better job of, because having people who can vouch for you and be willing to be the advocates for you speaks more volumes than you saying of ZISD than me say, we've done this and that. So that's how I look at it. So financial, personal, and volunteering as well. And also the other thing we could do for ZISD, we try to be sustainable. So in some of the things we do, like on the college prep side, we also tutor kids on the SATs. So the people who can afford it, we charge them. So if somebody goes to Chengelo or some other place where they can afford to, and you want your nephew to come through, we can come on a SAT college prep program and they'll pay us. And that's what we use to pay other people for fellowships and support ourselves as well. So I think that is how I would like to, my ask. But obviously people are also more than willing to ask, contribute however well they can, right? As in, it's a power of collaboration. So somebody, I might ask, say, well, I want $30,000, but somebody might say, hey, I'll volunteer my time. And there's no right answer to that. Then the question is, you give whatever you can. It might seem a little, but it still goes a long way. So I think the last comment came from Martin Kawe, who was the first student we sponsored. And even he's still, it's not just a figment of my imagination, it's real. And the fact that even I was able to give something small at the time, and it was such a big deal to him, is what is always carries over. So people always think, oh no, I need to give $10,000, whatever. You could start with giving $100 or $20 and make a big impact that way. So I think that's always been the mindset, is we think you have to solve everybody's problem. Just sometimes in just a small support or radio encouragement, keep somebody going, right? As in, we've been doing this for a decade. And what keeps us going is sometimes somebody just saying, you know what, I believe in you guys, here's $10, right? And that might even count more than the $10,000 you get from somebody else, because you know that that person really believes in what you're doing and is rooting for you to succeed. So that's all we can ask for, is everybody's support in whatever way they can give it, whether it's time, talent, or treasure.
I'm getting a few buzzes on how people can donate to you, Chiluwata. If you have a link or some page where people can go and directly download, we can send that out to the group, or if you have it handy, we can share it in the chat box. So hopefully we can get some good donations from this presentation. Mutemwa, I think, so I know we're a little bit over time. If you guys are available for another 5 or 10 minutes, I think Mutemwa wanted to share something as well, and then we'll close for today. Mutemwa?
Thank you so much, Chita. Just in addition to the many brilliant words that Mr. Chilu said, I think something that really stuck with me is how the international community reaches out first before Zambia does. And I feel like that's something that's very dangerous, especially with the kind of generation that's being produced. You know, this is the age of information. And so a lot of disparities that Zambia may have faced in the past with access to information are being broken up. And I feel like something that is affecting a lot of people in a similar situation as myself is how can we make sure that the people that we are sending out feel the need to come back or to produce end results in Zambia? And I think that, you know, it's a very aggressive competition because they don't come with very small offers. They come with very big, grand offers because, you know, they want to bring you into the system. And I think my ask is that we continue to reach out to people my age and people within my generation and keep asking exactly what it is that we are working on that you would like to give contribution to, or what you are working on that you feel we would be interested in. And I think that's a very powerful thing because I think a lot of us kind of operate, a lot of us my age kind of operate in this bubble where we feel like we just kind of have to take what's given to us or take up opportunities that's given to us. I'm always hearing from like older people saying like, this generation, can you be the ones to deliver us from the British government if this was 1964? But the funny thing is that the older generation is still there and still very much involved in a lot of the work we're doing, and we're not operating within a bubble. And I feel like this divide can be broken up if we are proactively reaching out to each other. And so my ask is that for people like me and other people my age is that you reach out when you see their ventures going up online and ask, how can we really take this to the next level so that we don't operate in a bubble or we don't succumb to this grand offer from Amazon, for example, and then we have no choice but to take it because we don't really know what kind of opportunities other Zambians have to offer as well. And so I feel like bridging that gap is also part of the ask of this meeting.
Excellent. I love it. Again, nothing to add there. So thank you, Mutemwa, for sharing that and for challenging this group to collaborate better and to reach out to each other. Before we close, Chiluwata, one thing that you've spoken a lot about the different things that you're doing and the skill. Do you have any numbers to share, right? Like I want the audience to kind of appreciate your reach, right? Through your SAT prep program, the ZISD, like how many students are currently in the program, have graduated from your program, and the different things that you're doing. Like, could you just like maybe state that just so that we can maybe fully appreciate all that's going on? Because I think we've heard anecdotally here and there, and I just kind of want to say it out loud right now.
I think, so there's two ways to look at it. You can look at it in terms of the numbers, but I like to look at it in terms of the impact. So in terms of numbers, I think we've helped over 5,000 people, young people in many areas. So on the college prep, we try to keep it focused. So we work with 100 students every year. And so that's kind of the number we work with. I think anything much larger than that, you don't get the one-on-one attention somebody needs to go to like a top Ivy League school. Then on the scholarship as well, we helped hundreds of students as well. So most of these programs, each of them in their own right have helped maybe 500 to 1,000 people. But then if you look at them in totality, you're looking at north of 5,000 people. But I don't like to look at it from the big 5,000 people. I like to actually be very involved and knowledgeable of everybody. So I'd like to know what ZLA'S Kasepa is up to and make sure that he gets an award from the Queen of England, right? Other people are just big on, no, I'll give 1,000 pesos to so many people and say I've helped so many people from impact standpoint, right? I look at it, if you're going to say sustainable development, you have to help somebody from the point of need to the point where they can be now an agent of change, right? So it means we get ZLA'S from Chachacha in Kitwe, through Fatima, through ZISD, through Harvard, to Microsoft, where she can now do bigger things then at least we can complete the feedback loop, right? The same thing with the Mutemwa, right? We get him from Zambia, he's at Princeton, Microsoft, and that. So I think for me, that's kind of what I'm more invested in, is the long-term big picture, because the challenge, even with the nonprofit world, is there's this big obsession with metrics, where people like to brag about, oh, I helped 1,000 kids a year on a scholarship, right? I remember we used to fight about this with our donors earlier, where they always wanted me to have a scholarship with maybe 1,000, 2,000 people a year, right? But I said, look, this is a different approach. What I'm looking at is like the Navy SEALs approach. I don't need 1,000 soldiers to go march for me. I just need 100. But if these guys are like very good at what they do, they'll be a lot more impactful than the 1,000 you're helping. Of course, so the argument was always, why am I paying school fees at Fatima, right? Which is more expensive than paying for like a day school. But I knew that Fatima would instill the right leadership attributes, which even when Stella went to the Queen of England, she was amazed by that, right? As in, Stella actually took one of the last photos of Meghan, Queen Elizabeth, and Prince Harry. Like, there's always a photo they show of them, but if you zoom out, there's actually Stella Kasep and everybody else in that picture. So these are the people she's rolling with now, right? So for me, I'm like, you can't really put a value on that, because these are like very unique experiences each of them has, right? The fact that Mutemwa has been invited twice to go to work at Microsoft says how valuable it is, right? There's another student at Princeton who came from the same school as Mutemwa. He was Simanga Diso Ndlovu. He set the record as being the third fastest person in Princeton's history. Now imagine, Princeton has been around for over 300 years. So he's a 1 in 100 kind of person, 1 in 100 years kind of person, and he's breaking records in his first semester there. So these guys are not just going to Ivy Leagues, they are crushing it. Like, you go to the Harvard website, they're bragging about Stella. You go to the Dartmouth website, they're bragging about another student. So this is, I think for me, the impact I like to leave. It's not so much about the fact that you can count. Obviously, we've helped thousands of students, but it's a question of at what level are those thousands of students, right? And these are now, I can safely say that these are now the next generation of leaders, where the next president of Zambia is going to be from here, right? The next billionaire in the world, like Mutemwa was talking about, 2 of his colleagues already started a tech startup, right? And these are ZISD products. So those are now the people who will be generating employment, because people are always blaming the government and saying there's all this unemployment. What am I going to come back do in Zambia? Well, if we are the ones creating the jobs, we control people's destiny, right? So there's certain things we look at that. So yeah, we've helped thousands of people, but also in some of the projects we've done, like the music project, those ones have actually helped millions of people. So we did like a 10-10-1 music project where we worked with the top musicians. 3 of our music videos were nominated for being best music videos in Born and Bred in terms of inspiration, because we believed in music for social change. And so those reached out to like over 10 million people. So it's not the same level depth of impact, but a lot of people have touched.
I think we lost them there. But I think we all kind of can appreciate what he's saying about the level of impact this is having on multiple fronts, right? And I think Chiluwata also has a women's soccer team as well. So doing so many great things on a lot of fronts are really, really amazing, honestly. I gush over them. It's hard to find the right words to kind of describe how amazing the work that they're doing and the trails they're blazing are. So as we close, I'd like to turn it back to Dr. Frida for some parting remarks. Again, thank you all for staying on a little bit longer and sharing and asking questions and being engaged throughout the session.
Wow, Chida, thank you so much. Mutemwa, thank you so much. And Chiluwata, his line dropped. So Mutemwa, you know what your next project is, right? Fixing our internet issues in Zambia. I just want to say a few things. First of all, I had an opportunity to talk with Mutemwa earlier on this week. I think it was on Tuesday. I was wowed by him, and just listening to him again today just gives us so much hope and faith for the future. Mutemwa, keep doing what you're doing, because you are absolutely amazing. The other question I'll ask all of you is, how many of you knew Chiluwata Lungu, apart from the ones who went to Palame, but how many of you knew about him or the work that he's doing? I'm seeing nods, I'm seeing, how many of you know about, I mean, apart from you, Chimo, I know you know him, but think about the work that he's doing and how he's silently just making things happen. And as he shared, 2009, 12 years, but he's focused on making things happen. And I remember when we were having conversations, a few years ago, and I was asking him, how's the government supporting him? And he was sharing with me some of the challenges that he was having with the Ministry of Education, how they would say, we'll meet with you to help you with your program, and then they wouldn't be there. And it just talks to some of the barriers and issues and opportunities for us to unlearn as Zambians, right? Following up and being there. I don't think there's a whole lot that I can say, except that we all have to work together to multiplying and scaling this up. We have to work together to getting many more Mutemwas because they're geniuses. I've fortunately have had the opportunity to work with Zambians over the last 3.5 years in capacity planning on transnational crimes. And every time I come, and I think Lillian, who's from Kenya, supports us in this work, we're always blown away by the intelligence of Zambian people. Always blown away. I'm never disappointed. I'm always very proud to be there. And this is where we have facilitators that are attorney generals and deputy attorney generals teaching our Zambian law enforcement individuals. Always blown away. But listen to what you've heard today. Listen to the opportunity for us to really make a difference for our country. Listen to what Chiluwata mentioned. We are the government. We can't sit there and let government take over because we have that commitment, but we also have that responsibility. And when I was speaking with Mutemwa, and I said, okay, I'm going to send this out on LinkedIn. Then he came back and gave me feedback. And it was to change a few words. And I'm like, you know what? He's my mentor. So I had to listen to him and change a few words about how he wanted it articulated. That's what we need to do. We need to support them. They need to support us because working together is how we're going to make the difference. So I know we've gone over, but in terms of the path forward, what we wanted to do really was to create that whole awareness of where we are. For those that have thought that, you know what, Zambia is going in the wrong direction, no, we have to course correct. But we have to work together to course correct. And just through the opportunities and support for each other, I know that Zambia is going to be a better place, and Zambia can be the next Silicon Valley with minds like Chiluwata Lungu and Mutemwa and the ZLA'S and I think it was, is it Martin? Martin, you're on the phone. I'd love to hear from you as the first student, I think, or graduate from here. I don't know, Martin, if you have a few words, I'd love to hear from you because you've been through this and it wasn't a figment of anybody's imagination. Are you on? That we can hear you for a second?
Yeah, with the room, Martin, can we please stand up?
Where is he? Is he on? He's on mute?
Yeah, he's on mute. Let me see if I can unmute him.
Would love to, I mean, congratulations of the first student from this program. I mean, we couldn't hang up without acknowledging you. Thank you so much for being real.
There's Martin, you're on. Oh, there it goes.
Hello.
You're real.
Okay, I hope. Hello, everyone. Yes, I am very real. I was somewhere far from my room, well, actually outside school, but I was like, I can't miss this, so I had to borrow whatever I could borrow to join the meeting. My phone's actually off. That's why I came in late. But I think so far, most of the important aspects of this conversation have been discussed. And what I really love is the idea that we have to give back. And I think just based on the name of the organization, Zambian Institute for Sustainable Development, if you want to sustain something, it means it has to reproduce itself. And when they stepped in and helped out me and my family, my mother, it really did a lot. It really did, because it sort of changes you to be helped by someone you barely even know. And then me and Dr. Chilu only met like last, if not this year. This year, that's when we physically got to meet. But also Mr. Peter Lungu, Mr. Elijah Lungu, Mr. Kachinga, and everyone else at ZISD have been an immense help. And I don't think any of the things that have happened maybe 15 years would have been possible without their help. And I'd like to just take this moment to acknowledge that. And I think that's something I'll be acknowledging for the rest of my life, probably. And I hopefully, based on what we've learned today, I think it's something that I hope to reproduce and accomplish in other people's lives as well. Can you get me?
Oh, wow. No, on that note, thank you so much, Martin. Thank you for being real. It was just amazing. I want to thank you all. You know, we've been doing this since last year. If you have any ideas for other discussions that will help motivate us, we welcome them. You can go to our website, www.ZLAFoundation.com. We appreciate your support. Thank you so very much. Look forward to great ideas. Have a fantastic rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next month. Third Saturday of the month, we host these events. So thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Have a good weekend.
Bye. Thank you.
You guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lungu. Thank you, Mutemwa.
Where are you calling from,
So much.
Mr. Siamukwela? Where are you calling from?
From Livingstone.
Yeah, I saw he sent a message from Livingston. Thank you so much for participating.
Thank you.
Mutemwa and Dr. Chilu, Lungu, Musoma, Bella, if you want to hang on while everybody's leaving, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you to all of you.
Okay.
Hey, Bella.
Okay, Henry, how are you, sir?
I'm well. Good to see you.
I resurrected him. I had to call Henry. I'm like, Henry, you're on this call today.
I
was
so
like,
glad
you're not missing this. I told him.
I'm so glad I was on this call. Oh my gosh. Wow.
I know, Mutemwa, when I met him, I'm like, Mutemwa, I said, you've a new mother now. He was like, what? I said, yeah, I'm your mother now.
Wow. Wow.
Oh, you're gonna start the recording, Doc, so we don't.
Oh, that's right. Bill always keeps me honest.